You probably know Elvis Presley died at Graceland, but did you know his twin brother was stillborn, delivered just 35 minutes before him in a tiny two-room house? Or that the king of rock and roll met his future wife, Priscilla Beaulieu, when she was only 14 years old while he was serving in the U.S. Army. And get this, his first attempt to conquer Las Vegas in 1956 was a complete disaster, with audiences totally unimpressed. Number 6. Bad Nauheim, Germany, where a soldier found love and karate. Okay, picture this. It's 1958. Elvis Presley is the biggest star on the planet. His records sell millions. Movies are blockbusters. Teenage girls and their moms are screaming his name. So, what happens next? He gets drafted. Yup, the king of rock and roll became Private Presley. U.S. Army serial number 53,310,761. While many thought he'd get special treatment, Elvis served as a regular soldier. After basic training in the U.S., where his famous hair was buzzed off gasp, he was shipped off to West Germany. From October 1958 to March 1960, he was stationed with the 3rd Armored Division in Friedberg. But he didn't live on the base barracks like most J's. Elvis rented a comfortable house nearby in the spa town of Bad Nauheim, at Gaystrasse 14. This wasn't exactly roughing it. His father Vernon and his paternal grandmother Minnie Mae Dodger came over to live with him. Some of his buddies from Memphis, who would later form part of his Memphis Mafia entourage, were also stationed nearby and spent time at the house. They had parties, listened to music, and tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, despite Elvis being one of the most famous people alive. Bad Nauheim holds significance for 2 major reasons beyond just his military service. First, tragedy struck just before he deployed. While on leave after basic training, his beloved mother Gladys fell seriously ill. Elvis rushed back to Memphis, but tragically, she passed away in August 1958 at just 46 years old. This loss devastated Elvis, and he carried that grief with him to Germany. Some say he never truly recovered from losing her. Fourth, the second huge event, meeting Priscilla Beaulieu. In September 1959, at a party hosted at his Bad Nauheim home, Elvis was introduced to the 14-year-old stepdaughter of a U.S. Air Force captain stationed nearby. Elvis was 24 at the time. Despite the age difference, they formed an immediate connection. He was reportedly charmed by her youth and innocence, perhaps seeing her as someone he could mold and trust in his increasingly crazy world. They spent a lot of time together during the remainder of his service in Germany. This meeting set the stage for a relationship that would dominate his personal life for years to come, leading to their marriage in 1967. Germany was also where Elvis seriously pursued his interest in martial arts. He had dabbled before, but in Germany, he began studying karate intensely under instructors like Shergin Schadel. He eventually earned his black belt and incorporated karate moves into his later stage performances, becoming a signature part of his Las Vegas shows. So, while serving his country far from the screaming crowds and Hollywood lights, Bad Nauheim became a place of profound personal change for Elvis, a place of deep grief, newfound love, and a developing passion for martial arts that would shape his future image. He left Germany in March 1960, not just as a soldier returning home, but as a man profoundly altered by his experiences there. Number 5. Las Vegas, Nevada, the King's Second Coming and Glittering Cage. Las Vegas and Elvis Presley. The names are practically synonymous now. The jumpsuits, the capes, the sold-out crowds, the sheer larger-than-life spectacle. But it wasn't always that way. Believe it or not, Elvis's first foray into Vegas was a total dud. In April 1956, a young, hip-swiveling Elvis played a 2-week engagement at the New Frontier Hotel. He was hot off his initial chart success, but the older, more conservative Vegas casino crowds just didn't get it. They were used to established acts like Frank Sinatra and Liberace. Reviews were lukewarm. One famously called him a jug of corn liquor at a champagne party. He was, reportedly, miserable and cut the engagement short. Vegas wasn't ready for the raw energy of rock and roll. Or perhaps Elvis wasn't yet the polished showman they expected. Fast forward 13 years. After a period focused on movies, many of them critically panned but commercially successful, and a seeming decline in musical relevance, Elvis staged a massive comeback with his 1968 NBC television special. Often called the '68 Comeback Special, it showed a revitalized, raw, and incredibly hot Elvis, reminding everyone why he was the king. This triumph paved the way for his return to Las Vegas, but this time on his own terms. In July 1969, Elvis opened at the brand new International Hotel, later the Las Vegas Hilton, now the Westgate Las Vegas. This wasn't just a concert. It was an event. Backed by a full orchestra and 2 vocal groups, the Imperials and the Sweet Inspirations, Elvis delivered a powerhouse performance that blew the roof off. This time, Las Vegas loved him. His initial 4-week engagement broke all attendance records for the city. It was a stunning success, leading to a long-term contract. For the next 7 years, Elvis performed regular grueling stints at the International Hilton, typically playing 2 shows a night, dinner show and midnight show, for a month at a time. He performed a staggering 636 consecutive sold-out shows there. These Vegas years created the iconic image of Elvis that many remember, the elaborate, bejeweled jumpsuits designed by Bill Beaulieu with names like Peacock, Aloha, Eagle, Sundial, the capes, the karate chops and kicks integrated into his performances, the handing out of scarves to adoring female fans, the powerful voice-tackling rock anthems, soulful ballads, and gospel numbers. He recorded several live albums there, including Elvis in Person at the International Hotel and On Stage. Las Vegas became his kingdom. He was the highest-paid performer in the city's history. He had a massive penthouse suite, nicknamed the Bunker, high above the Strip. Celebrities flocked to see his shows. He essentially invented the modern Las Vegas residency, proving that a single headliner could sustain massive audiences for extended periods. However, the Vegas years also took a toll. The relentless schedule, the pressure to perform, the isolation of his fame and his unhealthy lifestyle, poor diet, lack of sleep, contributed to his increasing dependence on prescription drugs to manage sleep, pain, and energy levels. While the shows were often electrifying, especially in the early years, reports from later engagements sometimes described erratic behavior or performances, where he seemed tired or unwell. Las Vegas was the stage for Elvis's incredible second act, a dazzling display of showmanship that cemented his legendary status. but it was also a demanding high-pressure environment that arguably exacerbated the health problems that would ultimately lead to his premature death. It was both his triumphant return and, in some ways, his glittering cage. Number 4. Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee, the King's Castle, and final resting place. If there's one place on earth synonymous with Elvis Presley, it's Graceland. It's more than just a house. It's a symbol of his rags to riches story, his sanctuary, his family home, and ultimately his final resting place. Elvis bought the mansion and its surrounding 13.8-acre estate in March 1957 for $102,500. He was just 22 years old, already a massive star needing privacy and security away from the increasingly hysterical fans. The house itself, a colonial revival-style mansion, was already named Graceland by its previous owners, the family of Dr. Thomas Moore and his wife, Ruth. Graceland became the center of Elvis's universe. His parents, Vernon and Gladys, and later his grandmother, Minnie Mae, moved in with him. After he married Priscilla in 1967, she lived there too, and their daughter, Lisa Marie, was raised there during her early childhood. It was a true family home, albeit one owned by the biggest star in the world. Elvis constantly personalized and expanded Graceland. He added the famous pink Alabama fieldstone walls surrounding the property and the iconic music gates, shaped like musical notes and guitars. Inside, the decor reflected his unique, sometimes flamboyant tastes. There's the formal living room, with its white couches and gold accents, the dining room, where the family gathered, and his parents' bedroom downstairs. Perhaps the most famous room is the Jungle Room, added in the 1960s. With its green shag carpet on the floor and ceiling, carved wooden furniture, indoor waterfall, and Polynesian vibe, it was reportedly decorated in a single afternoon shopping spree. Elvis loved this room. It was where he relaxed with friends and family, and he even recorded parts of his last 2 studio albums there in 1976. Outside, the grounds included stables for his horses, pastures, and eventually a swimming pool and a racquetball building. The racquetball building, completed in 1975, was more than just a sports facility. It included a luxurious lounge area and became a favorite hangout spot. Graceland was Elvis's refuge from the pressures of fame. Behind its gates, surrounded by his family and his loyal group of friends and employees, known as the Memphis Mafia, he could attempt a semblance of normal life, albeit a life involving late-night movie fentals, impromptu gospel sing-alongs, and riding golf carts around the property. But it could also be isolating, a gilded cage, where the outside world was kept at bay. Tragically, Graceland was also where Elvis's life ended. On August 16, 1977, he was found unresponsive in the bathroom of his private upstairs suite. He was rushed to the hospital, but pronounced dead at the age of 42. The official cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia, though the role of prescription drug abuse remains a point of discussion. His body lay in state in Graceland's foyer, where thousands of mourning fans filed past his casket. Initially, Elvis was buried next to his mother at nearby Forest Hill Cemetery. However, due to security concerns, including an alleged attempt to tamper with the grave, Vernon Presley had Elvis's and Gladys's remains moved to the meditation garden at Graceland in October 1977. Vernon himself was buried there after his death in 1979, as was Elvis's grandmother, Minnie Mae, in 1980. More recently, Elvis's grandson Benjamin Kia, 2020, and his daughter Lisa Marie Presley, 2023, were also laid to rest in the meditation garden. Facing financial difficulties after Elvis's death, Priscilla Presley made the decision to open Graceland to the public for tours in 1982. It was an immediate success. Today, Graceland is the second most visited home in the United States after the White House, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. It remains preserved much as Elvis left it, offering a fascinating, deeply personal glimpse into the life of the king of rock and roll, his triumphs, his tastes, and his untimely end. It stands as a permanent monument to his incredible journey and enduring legacy. Number 3, Sun Studio, Memphis, Tennessee. The birthplace of rock and roll. Maybe. Before Graceland, before the jumpsuits, before Hollywood, there was a small, unassuming recording studio in Memphis called Sun Studio. Run by a visionary producer named Sam Phillips, this place became ground zero for a musical explosion that changed the world. And Elvis Presley was the fuse. The story famously begins in the summer of 1953. An 18-year-old Elvis, then working as a truck driver for Crown Electric, walked into the Memphis recording service, the public recording service side of Sun Studio. He paid about $4 to record 2 songs, My Happiness. And That's When Your Heartaches Begin, onto an acetate disc. The often repeated story is that it was a birthday gift for his mother, Gladys. Though her birthday was months earlier, maybe it was a belated gift, or maybe he just wanted to hear what he sounded like. Sam Phillips wasn't there that day, but his assistant, Marion Keisker, was. She was intrigued by the polite young man with the unusual sideburns and distinct style. When she asked him who he sounded like, he reportedly replied, "I don't sound like nobody." Keisker made a note. Good ballad singer, hold. She also discreetly made a tape copy of his recording. Sam Phillips was on a quest. He had already recorded blues legends like Howlin' Wolf and B.B. King, but he famously said, or is reputed to have said, "If I could find a white man who had the Negro sound and the Negro feel, I could make $1 billion. He heard something promising in Elvis, but wasn't initially convinced. In early 1954, Phillips needed a singer for a ballad called Without You. He called Elvis in, but the session didn't go well. Elvis couldn't quite nail the song. Phillips asked him what else he could sing, and Elvis ran through various country and pop tunes, but nothing clicked. Sam was about to send him home. Then, during a break, Elvis started fooling around. He picked up his guitar and launched into an old blues number, Arthur Big Boy Crudups. That's all right. But he didn't sing it like Crudup. He sang it faster, looser, with a nervous energy, almost like he was making fun of it. Guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black, who were in the studio for the session, joined in picking up the infectious rhythm. Sam Phillips, in the control room, stuck his head out the door. "What are you doing?" he asked. "We don't know," they replied. Phillips told them to find a place to start and do it again. He hit the record button. That spontaneous moment of musical chemistry was magic. It wasn't blues, it wasn't country, it wasn't pop. It was something new, something raw and exciting. Phillips knew he had found what he was looking for. They needed a B-side for the single. They tried various things, then landed on Blue Moon of Kentucky, a slow bluegrass waltz by Bill Monroe. Again, Elvis and the band transformed it, turning it into an up-tempo, almost frantic rockabilly number with a hiccuping vocal and Scotty Moore's driving guitar licks. Sam Phillips took the finished record of That's All Right, Blue Moon of Kentucky, to influential Memphis DJ Dewey Phillips, no relation, at WHBQ Radio. Dewey played That's All Right on his popular Red, Hot, and Blue show. The station's switchboard lit up like never before. Listeners went crazy, demanding to know who the singer was and asking him to play it again. Dewey reportedly played the song 14 times in a row that night. He also brought a nervous Elvis down to the station for his first ever radio interview. Aware that listeners might be assuming Elvis was black based on the sound, Dewey made sure to ask him what high school he attended, Humes High, an all-white school at the time, subtly clarifying his race for the Memphis audience. That single Sun 209, released in July 1954, is widely considered a pivotal moment in music history, arguably the birth certificate of rock and roll, or at least rock-babbly. It launched Elvis Presley's career. Over the next year and a half, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill, later joined by drummer DJ Fontana, recorded several more legendary tracks at Sun Studio, including Good Rockin' Tonight, Milk Cow Blues Broogie, Baby Let's Play House, and Mystery Train. These Sun recordings are revered for their raw energy, menaced production, a native blend of musical styles, and the sheer excitement captured on tape. In late 1955, Sam Phillips, needing cash to promote other artists on his label, like Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and Jerry Lee Lewis, sold Elvis's contract to the major label RCA Victor for the then unprecedented sum of $35,000. Elvis's sound would become more polished at RCA, and his fame would explode globally, but the foundation was laid in that small studio on Union Avenue where a young truck driver accidentally invented a new sound. Sun Studio truly is where the king found his voice. Number 2. Memphis, Tennessee. Beyond the gates and studio. The city that shaped the king. Before Elvis bought Graceland and long before he walked into Sun Studio, Memphis itself was the crucible where Elvis Aaron Presley was forged. The city's unique cultural and musical melting pot provided the essential ingredients for the sound that would change popular music forever. Elvis and his parents, Vernon and Gladys, moved to Memphis from Tupelo, Mississippi in November 1948. Elvis was 13. They were seeking better economic opportunities, leaving behind the deep poverty of their rural Mississippi roots and Vernon's past legal troubles. Their first Memphis home was a small apartment in a public housing complex called Lauderdale Courts, located downtown. Life was still a struggle financially, but it was a step up. Memphis was a world away from Tupelo. It was a bustling river city, a major hub for cotton and lumber, and crucially, a vibrant center for music. Young Elvis attended L.C. Humes High School. By most accounts, he was a shy, quiet student, something of an outsider. He didn't excel academically or in sports, but he was already developing his own distinctive style, paying close attention to his hair, favoring the flashier clothes sold on Beale Street, which set him apart from his peers. Music was his passion and his escape. While some classmates made fun of his greaser style, or his quiet demeanor, music was where he started to find his voice. He began bringing his guitar to school, playing and singing during lunch breaks. In April 1953, during his senior year, he nervously entered the Humes High Annual Minstrel Show. He sang a popular ballad, Teresa Brewer's "Till I Waltz Again with You." To his own surprise, and likely the surprise of many classmates who only knew him as the quiet kid, he received thunderous applause, even winning an encore. It was perhaps the first public validation of his talent. After graduating from Humes in June 1953, Elvis took on various jobs to help support his family. The most famous of these was driving a truck for the Crown Electric Company. It was during this time, while working a blue-collar job and living in the housing projects, that he absorbed the rich musical tapestry of Memphis. Memphis was racially segregated by law, but musically, the lines were blurred. Elvis soaked it all in. He listened obsessively to the radio, tuning into stations playing country music, like the Grand Ole Opry broadcasts, pop singers like Dean Martin, one of his idols, and gospel music, both white and black. He and his family attended the Assembly of God Church, continuing the tradition from Tupelo, immersing him in the passionate sounds of Southern gospel quartets. Crucially, Elvis was drawn to the electrifying sounds emanating from Beale Street, the legendary heart of black commerce and culture in Memphis. Though segregation laws were in effect, Beale Street's music scene was an undeniable force. Elvis would hang out near the clubs, absorbing the raw energy of the blues, performed by artists like B.B. King and Howlin' Wolf, both of whom recorded for Sam Phillips at Sun. He frequented shops like Lansky Bros., clothiers on Beale, where many black musicians bought their stylish outfits, further influencing his unique look. He also spent time listening to black gospel music, which had a profound and lasting impact on his vocal style and stage presence. The emotional intensity, the call and response patterns, the sheer fervor, it all seeped into his musical DNA. Memphis provided Elvis with the essential blend of influences: the storytelling and twang of country, the smooth phrasing of pop ballads, the spiritual passion of white gospel, and the raw emotion and rhythmic drive of black blues and gospel. He didn't just copy these styles, he synthesized them in a way no one had before. When he finally walked into Sun's studio, he carried the sounds of Memphis within him. The city wasn't just a backdrop. It was the source code for his revolutionary music. From the housing projects to the high school stage, from the radio waves to the rhythms of Beale Street, Memphis was the place where Elvis Presley became Elvis Presley. Number 1. Tupelo, Mississippi. The humble beginning. Every story has a beginning, and for the king of rock and roll, that beginning was incredibly humble. Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in a tiny two-room shotgun shack in East Tupelo, Mississippi. The house was built by his father, Vernon Presley, with help from Vernon's father and brother. It had no electricity and no indoor plumbing. But the story of Elvis's birth is marked by both miracle and tragedy. Elvis was actually a twin. His identical twin brother, Jesse Garin Presley, was delivered stillborn 35 minutes before Elvis arrived. This profound loss deeply affected his mother, Gladys Presley, for the rest of her life. She became fiercely protective of her surviving son, and Elvis grew up with the awareness of being the twin who lived, perhaps fueling a sense of destiny or a need to achieve enough for two people. Gladys often told Elvis that he had the strength of two men. Life in Tupelo during the Great Depression was incredibly difficult for the Presley family. They were by any measure poor. Vernon worked various odd jobs, but steady employment was scarce. Gladys worked intermittently, sometimes as a sewing machine operator. They struggled to make ends meet. Adding to their hardship, when Elvis was just 3 years old, Vernon, along with Gladys's brother, Travis Smith, and another man, was charged with check forgery over a $4 check from the sale of a hog. Vernon was convicted and sentenced to 3 years in the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman Farm. While Vernon was imprisoned, he served about 8 months before being released on parole. Gladys and young Elvis lost the house Vernon had built. They were forced to move in with relatives, shuffling between various homes in Tupelo. This period of instability and poverty left a lasting impression on Elvis. Even after achieving immense wealth, he reportedly remained frugal in some ways and deeply concerned about financial security for his family. Despite the hardships, Tupelo was where Elvis had his first exposure to music. The Presley family attended the Assembly of God Church, and the passionate gospel music sung there made a huge impact on young Elvis. He loved the singing and the rhythm. Gladys bought him his first guitar when he was 11 years old. The popular story goes that he wanted a bicycle or a rifle, but Gladys, perhaps concerned for his safety or recognizing his musical interest, and unable to afford the alternatives, steered him towards a guitar from the Tupelo Hardware Company. He learned basic chords from his uncles and the church pastor. He also experienced his first taste of public performance in Tupelo. At age 10, encouraged by his teacher, he stood on a chair and sang Red Foley's country song, Old Shep, at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show Children's Talent Contest. He didn't have musical accompaniment, just his young voice. He won 5th prize, $5, and free admission to the fair rides. He also reportedly sang occasionally on local radio station WELO. Tupelo was a small, close-knit community. Elvis grew up surrounded by family, attending Lawhon Elementary School, playing with neighborhood kids. It was a simple Southern upbringing, steeped in church family and the omnipresent struggle of poverty. In 1948, when Elvis was 13, the Presleys packed their belongings into their 1939 Plymouth and left Tupelo behind, heading north to Memphis in search of a better life. Elvis would return to Tupelo triumphantly years later as a superstar. In 1956 and 1957, he performed homecoming concerts at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Showgrounds, the same place where he had competed as a child. The entire town turned out. He was given the key to the city. He donated the proceeds from the 1957 concert to build a park in Tupelo. Today, the tiny 2-room house where Elvis was born is the centerpiece of the Elvis Presley Birthplace Museum complex in Tupelo. It stands as a powerful reminder of the king's incredibly modest origins, a world away from the fame and fortune that awaited him, yet the essential starting point of his phenomenal journey. The poverty, the loss of his twin, the deep bond with his mother, the early exposure to gospel and country music, all these elements from his Tupelo childhood shaped the man and the artist he would become.